We do know the governor would not say if Robinson is cooperating with the investigation, but we do know Robinson's family said he had become, quote, more political in recent years and had criticized Kirk, mentioning that he was due to appear at an upcoming event in Utah and saying, quote, Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. That's all according to the Utah governor there. He also said bullet casings were found at the crime scene and they were engraved with several messages. One of those messages read, "Hey, fascist, catch." And FBI Director Kash Patel, he lauded the law enforcement response to the shooting, saying, quote, in 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. So there's a lot to dive into here. And for that, I want to bring in Bobby McDonald. He's a former supervisory Secret Service agent to help break this all down for us and recap. Thank you so much for joining us here, Bobby. We appreciate it.
Good afternoon. Always great to be with you.
Can we start with that press conference here? A lot of details I did just share there of what we do know, and we did learn a lot with that update. Was there anything that really stuck out to you?
Yeah, while it may not seem to the general public that 36 hours to put someone in handcuffs for this situation is that quick, I'm very impressed with the quickness of that investigation, in my opinion, and also the collaboration between state, local, and federal authorities. As we've talked before, an investigation is a reconstruction of the past, and they had to basically work backwards from that area where the shot took place, looking at all the videos, talking to witnesses, talking to people who may have had some idea who this is. I think it was calculated that they put out a couple of pictures there yesterday, late morning, to try to get some legs generated between the general public to see who might know this person or who might recognize who he is. And I think that was the one piece of evidence there that was able to get some legs and get us an arrest in this case in 36 hours. Very impressive. Now the investigation continues. We've got to dot all our I's and cross all our T's, check all the video, keep interviewing friends, neighbors, and relatives, and to make sure that we have this gentleman in custody and that his rights are not violated so that the case would go down a wrong direction. A lot of work still need to be done.
Right, and I want to ask you about all of that here, but first I wanted to just touch on what you said, that 33 hours, and FBI Director Kash Patel, he said, we got the person within that 33 hours, and this is a post here on X from Matt with Fox News Channel. Also, FBI Director Patel saying they had over 11,000 leads called into the FBI, and now they're saying every one of those leads will be run out here. Can we talk about looking into these leads, these tips, really what is left here to investigate when it comes to looking into all of this? And given how quickly this investigation has progressed, Bobby, I mean, we were getting information in here very quickly with all of this. How soon are we going to have some more answers potentially as they do continue this investigation with all of these tips?
Look, we're going to need to continue the investigation with some good old-fashioned police work. These officers, agents, and personnel are going to be out beating the bushes, running out every possible lead, talking to everybody that's indicated they may have some information. Look, with cell phones now and the CCTVs that we have all over the place, a lot of people don't even know what they might have on their phone or what that phone may have picked up. So each one of those 11,000 leads are going to have to be run out. A number of them may be nothing, but you can't let that slip through the cracks so that that one piece of the puzzle, that we might miss if we don't run something out, would slip through our hands. So they've got to be all tested, tried, made sure that they're accurate, make sure that they seize the evidence and package it properly. And the other good aspect of this investigation is we have the suspect alive, and hopefully he's going to want to cooperate with authorities and talk a little bit about what was going on in his life. Drug and alcohol problems, mental health. Did he lose his job recently? Did he break up with his significant other? What's been going on? And why did other people maybe miss some signals here that he was going to go effectuate this nefarious activity?
Right. Still a lot of questions. And before we dive into what else we do know, recapping what else we learned in the news conference, can you just speak to the importance of the public's help here? That's a lot of tips that did come in.
Sure. Look, a criminal investigation is conducted in this fashion by a lot of professionals, but it's okay to get lucky. It's okay to get some information, again, as I said, from somebody who may not know they have any information. Somebody may have seen that picture yesterday and said, hey, that's whoever, or gee, that looks like whoever. And that can send us in a direction to then get other pieces of the puzzle to then zero in on that individual and effectuate an arrest. The fact that his father, I believe I've heard reported, is a 27-year veteran of a sheriff's department out there. Wow, what is he going through with respect to his son's alleged activity, and the fact that he had to dig deep and get some intestinal fortitude to help deliver his son to the potential administration of justice here. Tough day for everybody.
Right, and let's just go over this timeline again, Bobby. And I do have this up on our screen here for our viewers. And this is going to be a little bit lengthy, but bear with me here because I do want to make sure we're hitting all of the details here. According to this investigation timeline, according to FBI Director Kash Patel, the first FBI agents arrived on the scene at Utah Valley University some 16 minutes after Kirk was shot on Wednesday. The Bureau released the first photos of the suspect on Thursday morning, followed by that announcement of a cash reward and then the release of video of the suspect climbing down from the roof of a campus building and running away. And also officials saying the shooter left behind imprints, including a palm print. We later learned a rifle was hidden in a towel that was recovered in a wooded area near the university campus. And there was a spent cartridge in the chamber and 3 other rounds loaded in the magazine. There was a lot that came out here. I do have to wonder, though, Bobby, given the fact that FBI officials had put out that $100,000 reward for any information, how close were they really to figuring this out? Because the reason they did have a suspect in custody now is because of family members reaching out and saying something.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's 2 prongs to this investigation. Look, they either knew more than we thought they knew early on, threw out a couple of crumbs with those initial photographs to start to generate some discussion amongst the public or amongst acquaintances or family or friends or whatnot to try to get it over the hump. The other thing is they may not have had any information at that point and needed those photos. So I'm guessing they knew a little bit more than they let on in this investigation. But again, they've got to be very calculated with the amount of information that they let out. We've talked numerous times before on your outlet here about the pros and cons of letting out too much information early on. So I think they did an excellent job. They calculated what they wanted to do. They put it out. They got the ball rolling. And then within 33, 36 hours, we've got somebody in custody. And like I said, that investigation has to continue. Good, hard work, a lot of no sleep hours for those investigators over the last 36 hours out there following those leads and doing what they need to do to keep the public safe and from this happening again.
When we talk about these large-scale events, if we think back to President Trump and what happened in Butler, this was a similar situation in the sense that was a large crowd. The roof was also involved, as we've seen here with Charlie Kirk as well. So when it comes to the security for these events, for these high-profile political public figures or political figures such as President Trump, such as Charlie Kirk, what needs to happen going forward here to prevent something like this from happening again?
Well, we're talking about apples and oranges there. We're talking about a presidential level of security with assets and military assets and things like that. Now, you're also talking on the Charlie Kirk side about a well-known and, let's be honest, can be a controversial figure with some people's understanding of his thoughts. I think that his security detail that was in place the other day, this isn't an unfair statement, I don't think. They weren't worried about a long-range rifle from 200 yards away. They were worried about someone rushing the stage, throwing an egg at him, laying down in front of his motorcade as he's leaving to go back to the airport. I don't think a long-range assassination attempt was on anybody's radar the other day, absent any intelligence that was out there or on social media with respect to that specific action. I think what you're going to see going forward is universities are going to be a little bit leery about bringing in controversial figures and having an open air type event. They're very difficult to secure, as we talked about with Butler. Security costs money, and a lot of times there isn't a lot of funding in place to get a level of security platform or apparatus that would bring it to the next level. And I think the liability there for universities, unfortunately, we want our students to be able to argue points and discuss different points of view. I think our students at various universities are going to lose now because I think universities are going to be a little leery about having these big scale outdoor events where this type of situation can happen. I don't think that any magnetometers or, quite frankly, any more police on the ground of that event were really going to negate what happened on top of that roof and under that awning the other day.
Wrapping up here, I have two more questions for you. One of them being there's still no motive here. We do know that there was that political messaging that was found. However, given the fast paced nature of this, I know we touched on this a little bit. How quickly do we think we can get a motive, and how much is that dependent on Robinson cooperating with officials?
Yeah, I think they're going to take all of those markings and things that were on the cartridges and on the weapon potentially and put those together. And I think they're going to have the opportunity to talk to him and have the opportunity to cooperate in this investigation. And it may behoove him for the way that the state there moves forward with the prosecution on his level of cooperation. He probably has a chance here to be interviewed and to lay out what his plans were and how he did it and why he did it, and potentially help himself down the road in a sentencing hearing for cooperation with the state of Utah. So it'll be interesting to see how we get that information from him, and if he's willing to do that, because so often in these cases, the shooter ends up taking their lives and we don't get an opportunity to chat with them about the situation.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to share this post from Representative Nancy Mace. We've been sharing reaction that's coming in here throughout the day on LiveNOW from Fox. She says, "We truly believe if Tyler Robinson had ever sat down across from Charlie, the great debater, the man of faith and grace he was, Tyler wouldn't have pulled the trigger." And so many questions, Bobby, surrounding where does the country go from here? What needs to happen? We do know Governor Cox was saying here that we are at a crossroads. Are we going to continue this violence, or are we going to come together as a nation? And I just wanted to ask you, given your time being in the Secret Service and spending all those years there, watching, I guess, how the country has transformed, what do you think needs to happen? What message would you share with our viewers?
Well, as I've said to you and your colleagues previously, I'm not a political scientist, but look, politicians on both sides of the aisle need to get their act together. We need to be talking about the hard issues that are going on out there. Again, whether it's mental health, drug and alcohol abuse, gun violence, gun obtaining, whatever you want to call it. Not so long ago, politicians could argue with each other on the floor of the House or the Senate and then go out to lunch. I don't think that happens a lot anymore. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of vitriol that's spewed and a lot of rhetoric that's out there that gets people rolling. And, with social media now and with the web and everything else, people are out there acting on various comments by various sides of the aisle. And I think we really, really, really need to sit down and figure out a way to get our act together and not just see all that arguing going on about everything under the sun on the 6 o'clock news. It's getting exhausting, and people are losing their lives because of it. You should be able to go out and have free speech to argue issues, not argue with people, but argue the issues that are controversial. That's what we want people. And more importantly, our college students at my university, we want them talking about hard things. We want to have hard discussions, but we also want to learn how to argue with each other, to argue about the topic and not argue with the person.
Bobby McDonald, I'm sure we'll have you on again as all of this does continue to unfold. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate it.
Always great to be with you. See you next time.